It was supposed to be a quiet summer. After my sophomore year of college, I decided to spend a few weeks at my uncle's farmhouse in rural Kentucky. I hadn't been back since I was a kid, and I figured the open skies, cornfields, and long, lazy afternoons would help me reset. City life had been getting to me, and I wanted a break from traffic, deadlines, and crowds. Uncle Ray lived about 10 miles from the nearest town, in a modest 2-story house with faded green shutters. The property stretched out over several acres, with a rickety red barn, an old windmill that creaked when the breeze blew just right, and a gravel road that led deep into the woods. He lived alone now since Aunt Lydia passed, and he was thrilled when I asked to stay the summer. The first 2 weeks were peaceful. I spent my mornings helping with chores, my afternoons reading under a tree, and my evenings drinking sweet tea on the porch with Uncle Ray. We didn't talk much, but he liked having company. I liked the silence. There weren't many neighbors. One family lived half a mile down the road, and a couple of others were scattered across the valley. It was the kind of place where people waved from their trucks and left their doors unlocked. The only unsettling thing was how often I noticed a white van on the roads. At first, I thought nothing of it. Probably someone doing deliveries or maintenance. But the more I paid attention, the more I realized how odd it was. It had no logo, no windows, and always seemed to show up when I was out alone. Once, I spotted it parked near the end of Uncle Ray's driveway when I returned from a morning jog. Another time, I saw it idling beside a row of mailboxes as I biked past. The driver was always obscured, either by glare or distance. I mentioned it to Uncle Ray one evening, expecting him to brush it off. "What kind of van?" he asked. "Old. White. No markings. It's been popping up a lot lately." He frowned and leaned forward, placing his tea on the railing. "Where exactly did you see it?" I listed off a few locations. His face darkened with each one. "That road by the mailboxes? That's a dead end," he said. "Ain't nobody lives past there except the old Griffith property, and that place has been empty 10 years. I felt a chill. "You think someone's squatting there?" He didn't answer at first. "Just keep your eyes open, Micah. Don't go wandering off too far." That night, I locked my door for the first time since arriving. A few days later, Uncle Ray had to drive into town to get parts for the tractor. He asked if I wanted to come, but I told him I'd rather stay and go for a run. I waited until I saw his truck disappear down the road before lacing up and heading out. It was a hot morning, the kind that bakes the gravel and leaves everything smelling like dust and weeds. I took my usual route past the barn, over the creek bridge, and up the slope toward the old service road. It was shaded by tall pine trees, and I liked the way the sunlight filtered through the branches. That's when I heard it. The slow crunch of tires on gravel. I turned and saw the van. It was maybe 50 yards back, just creeping along. I stopped running and stepped off the road to let it pass. But it didn't pass. It stopped. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dirty baseball cap, dark sunglasses, and a grease-stained t-shirt. He smiled. "You all right there, kid? Need a ride?" Something in his tone put every nerve in my body on high alert. "I'm good, thanks," I said, backing away. He stepped closer. "You sure?" "It's a long walk back to town." I didn't answer. My heart was pounding. I glanced around. No houses, no witnesses, just me, this man, and the quiet woods. Then I saw it. A pair of bolt cutters in the passenger seat, a roll of duct tape beside it. I ran. I didn't look back. I tore through the brush, ignoring the branches that whipped my arms and the rocks that cut into my legs. I could hear him behind me, shouting, cursing, then the slamming of a van door. The engine roared to life. But I knew these woods better. I veered left, down a narrow deer trail, then cut across the creek, soaking my shoes. I could hear the van somewhere, tires spinning in the loose dirt, trying to circle around. I pushed harder. By the time I reached the barn, my lungs were on fire. I ducked inside and crawled up the old hayloft, burying myself in straw. Minutes passed. Then I heard the van again, pulling into the gravel lot out front. A door opened. Footsteps. He was walking around the barn, checking the doors. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped below the loft. Then silence. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. Eventually, I heard the van drive off. I stayed hidden another half hour before finally creeping out and running to the house. Uncle Ray was just pulling in. When he saw my face, he knew something was wrong. I told him everything. He called the sheriff, and they drove out to look for the van. But it was gone. No one had seen it leave. No plates. No trace. For the rest of the summer, I didn't run alone. Uncle Ray took his shotgun everywhere. I kept the doors locked. The sheriff later told us there had been reports in the next county of a similar van, seen near schools and parks. No arrests were made. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't noticed the bolt cutters. Or if I'd tried to reason with the guy. Or if I'd been slower. But I don't dwell. Just stay aware. Even in the quietest places, danger can be hiding in plain sight. And luck only takes you so far. Before we dive into the next story, if you're here for the first time, please consider subscribing to our channel and clicking the bell icon so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. Your support truly encourages us and helps this channel continue to grow. And don't forget to share these stories with your friends and family. Thank you. After my uncle passed away in early 2022, he left behind a modest, one-story house, nestled deep in the wooded outskirts of Mason County, West Virginia. The house sat on 12 acres of land, most of it densely forested. Since I was in between jobs and freshly single, my aunt offered me the place rent-free, just until I figured things out. It sounded like a perfect reset. Quiet, remote, peaceful. Just me, the trees, and time to clear my head. The first few weeks were uneventful. I spent my days chopping firewood, making minor repairs to the house, and hiking the narrow deer trails that threaded the forest. The silence was addictive. No traffic, no neighbors, no reminders of the life I had temporarily walked away from. The house itself was older than I expected, built sometime in the 50s, according to the records. Hardwood floors that moaned with every step, rust-streaked pipes, and windows that fogged from the inside no matter how much I cleaned them. But I didn't mind. I slept with the windows cracked, listening to the wind whisper through the pines at night. It felt safe. That changed on a Thursday night, 3 weeks in. I was just dozing off around 1 a.m. when I heard whistling. It came from somewhere out in the woods. Faint, eerie, like someone slowly exhaling a broken tune. The sound floated in through the open window above my bed. I sat up, heart drumming a little harder than I'd like to admit. At first, I thought maybe it was an animal, some kind of bird. But the pattern didn't match anything I recognized. Just 3 long notes, then silence, then 3 again. I got up, walked to the front door, and stepped onto the porch. The air was crisp, the sky is clear. Nothing but a sea of black trees swaying in the moonlight. I told myself it had to be the wind. The next night, I heard it again. Same time. Same melody. Only this time, it was closer. Like it had moved in 50 yards overnight. I didn't sleep much. On the 3rd night, the whistling came from the tree line just past the shed. I locked the doors, closed the windows, and sat in the living room with a flashlight and the rifle my uncle had kept under the couch. I didn't see anything. The whistling stopped just before 2 a.m., like someone keeping a schedule. The next morning, I walked the edge of the yard. I didn't expect to find anything, but I did. Deep in the mud near the side of the house were footprints, bare feet, large, human. I followed them for maybe 20 feet before they disappeared into the underbrush. I didn't go any further. I called the county sheriff's office later that day. The deputy they sent was young, probably my age. He glanced at the prints and shrugged. "You sure they're not yours?" I wasn't even going to dignify that with an answer. "Well," he said, "I wouldn't worry too much. Probably some local fool trying to mess with you. Just keep the doors locked." That was it. No patrols, no report. Just a half-hearted warning and a nod. That night, I didn't open a single window. At 1:17 a.m., I heard the whistling again. This time from right outside the back door. 3 notes, then silence. Then, tapping. Slow, deliberate taps on the glass of the kitchen window. I grabbed the rifle, crouched behind the couch, and pointed it at the hallway. I stayed like that until dawn. The taps stopped after 10 minutes, but I didn't move. When the sun finally rose, I went outside. No prints this time. No signs of forced entry. Just an empty yard and the weight of exhaustion pressing down on me. I didn't tell anyone. I figured they'd say I was being paranoid. Maybe I was. But the fear didn't feel imaginary. 2 nights later, it got worse. At 1:17 a.m. exactly, the whistling returned. Only this time, it wasn't outside. It was coming from the hallway. I froze. I was in bed, paralyzed with fear, staring at the crack beneath my bedroom door. The whistling grew louder, closer. It passed the door and moved toward the living room. I didn't breathe. And then it stopped. Silence. I waited until morning to open the door. Nothing was out of place, except for one thing. The front door was unlocked. I knew I had locked it. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. Instead, I started reading through the journals my uncle kept in the attic. Most of it was mundane. Weather notes, deer sightings, grocery lists. But one entry from 2018 caught my eye. April 3rd. Heard the song again. 3 notes, like always. That makes the 4th spring in a row. This time, it came all the way to the porch. I think it knows I'm alone now. Another from 2020 read, "If I ever go missing, it wasn't an accident. Don't open the door after 1 a.m., no matter what you hear." I wanted to run, pack a bag, drive back to Birmingham, forget this place ever existed. But I didn't. Instead, I bought trail cams and floodlights. I nailed the windows shut. I started sleeping in the day and staying up through the night with a loaded rifle at my side. I even left a note on the door. No trespassing. Armed homeowner. It didn't help. On April 12th, the power went out at exactly 1:14 a.m. The clock on my stove had been blinking 1:14 when I checked it later. 3 minutes later, the whistling began. Then knocking. Soft, persistent. On every wall. Like hands dragging across the house. Around and around. Then a voice. "Matthew." It came from the front door. I don't know how they knew my name. I stayed hidden in the bedroom closet, rifle trembling in my grip. The voice spoke again. "Come see." Then silence. I passed out from sheer panic sometime around 4 a.m. When I woke, everything was normal, except for one thing. The attic door was open. I hadn't opened it in days. I moved out that same day. Packed my bags, drove until the trees gave way to highways, and didn't stop until I reached my sister's place in Tennessee. The moment I got there, I called my aunt and told her everything. About the whistling, the figure in the hallway light that went out, all of it. I told her I couldn't stay another night in that house. I said, "Please, just sell it. I don't care to who, just get rid of it. She was silent for a while. Then she said, I always wondered why your uncle started acting strange every spring. A week later, she put the house on the market. Sometimes, late at night, I think I hear those 3 notes again. But that's probably just my imagination. Probably. I grew up in a small, rural town in northern Arkansas. A place so small that even GPS would glitch out a few miles from the main street. Everyone knew everyone, and crime was practically unheard of. We were the kind of community where people left their doors unlocked and waved at every passing truck. As a kid, it was the perfect playground. Creeks, woods, cornfields, you name it. But what happened to me and my friend Tyler when we were 10 years old changed how I see the countryside forever. It was early August, sticky hot and buzzing with cicadas. Tyler and I had been playing all morning near the edge of his family's soybean farm. Our plan for the afternoon was to catch crawfish at the creek about a mile from his house. The creek ran along an old cow pasture, then curved into a wooded ravine. It was shaded, cool, and full of muddy little critters, just waiting for 2 dumb kids with jars and sticks. Tyler's mom let us go without hesitation. Like I said, safe town. The worst thing we worried about was snakes or poison ivy. We each packed a peanut butter sandwich and a Gatorade, then took off down the dirt path barefoot and happy. The walk to the creek took about 20 minutes. We laughed, talked about our favorite cartoons, and made plans to build a fort with the old lumber Tyler's dad kept behind the barn. Nothing seemed off until we got closer to the woods. That's when I saw something unusual. Someone had left a metal folding chair out by the water, right where we usually set our stuff down. At first, I figured it was one of the teenagers who sometimes fished there, but something about it felt off. It was positioned facing away from the water, like someone had sat there watching the path. And resting on the chair's seat was an old, worn baseball glove. Tyler picked it up, turning it over in his hand. This looks brand new. Like it was just left here. He sniffed it and wrinkled his nose. Sweaty, too. I looked around. The forest was quiet, but not in the peaceful way. It felt like the woods were holding their breath. No birds, no frogs, not even the trickle of the creek. Just the thick, sticky silence and the buzz of a single fly somewhere nearby. I should have said we should go home. I should have trusted my gut. But Tyler grinned, shrugged, and said, "Free glove," before tossing it in his backpack. We settled near the creek and started our usual routine, flipping over rocks, giggling every time something wriggled in the mud. But the tension wouldn't leave my chest. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of a leaf made my head jerk around. I kept feeling like we were being watched. After about 30 minutes, I had this overwhelming urge to look up the ridge behind us. I turned around and froze. A man was standing at the top of the ravine. He was tall and thin, wearing a dirty gray hoodie and dark jeans. His hands were shoved into his pockets, and his face was hidden beneath the hood's shadow. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, facing directly toward us. I whispered to Tyler, "Don't turn around. Someone's watching us." His eyes widened. "Where?" "Up on the hill, behind the tree line." He nodded slowly and leaned toward me. "We should leave." We grabbed our bags and began walking casually back toward the path. We didn't run. We didn't want to show fear. But every second, I felt his eyes burning into my back. We had barely made it 50 feet when I heard it. A single, deliberate step behind us on the gravel. I spun around. The man was gone. "Where'd he go?" Tyler hissed. I didn't answer. My mouth was dry. We started walking faster. The path out of the woods twisted along the ravine. meaning we had to stay near the trees for at least another 100 yards. As we rounded a bend, I caught a flash of movement to the left. Something was ducking behind a tree. Then another step behind us. We ran. Tyler was faster than me, but he slowed just enough to keep pace. We didn't say a word, just ran full speed through the woods, heart slamming against our ribs. I could hear him breathing hard beside me. Branches scraped our arms and legs. Pebbles dug into our bare feet. But we didn't stop. We didn't stop until we saw the edge of the field, the golden soybeans swaying in the sun. We sprinted out of the trees, onto the open trail, and didn't look back. Back at Tyler's house, we burst into the kitchen, gasping and muddy. His mom screamed, thinking we'd been bitten by a snake or attacked by a dog. We tried to explain. She asked us if we were sure it wasn't just an older kid playing a prank. We swore up and down it wasn't. Then Tyler remembered the glove. He pulled it out of his bag to show her. It was gone. There was no glove in the bag. Nothing but his sandwich and his Gatorade. I'd seen him put it in there with my own eyes. But now, it was like it had never been there at all. That night, I had the worst nightmares of my life. I dreamt of the man in the hoodie standing outside my bedroom window. I couldn't see his face, only his hands. Dirty, long-fingered, pressed against the glass. I woke up screaming, and my parents rushed in thinking I was sick. I didn't go near the creek again that summer. Tyler didn't either. His mom forbade it. A few weeks later, we heard a rumor that one of the teenagers from the next town over had gone missing near the ravine. They found his fishing gear, but not him. That's when Tyler and I told the sheriff what happened. He listened carefully, scribbled notes, then thanked us and told us we were brave. But nothing came of it. No suspects. No leads. The next summer, we moved to the city. Years passed. Life went on. Until last year, when I went back to visit the old town for a family funeral. I stopped by the creek on a whim. I don't know why. Maybe to prove to myself it was just a childhood fear blown out of proportion. Maybe to find peace. The folding chair was still there. Same spot, same angle, same rusted joints and weather-beaten fabric. Only now, resting on the seat, was something else. A red toy car. Clean. Untouched. Like it had just come out of a box. I didn't touch it. I didn't stay. I ran. I drove out of that town and haven't been back since. Tyler and I still talk. We don't mention the woods. We don't mention the glove. And sometimes late at night, I hear gravel crunching beneath my window. Just 1 or 2 steps. Not enough to wake anyone else. But I know what I hear. And I know who it is.